The UFC 298 pre-fight press conference just ended, and this is going to be my recap and reaction. We're going to discuss all the notable things that happened at the press conference and just kind of an overall feeling towards the press conference. It wasn't that great. It was probably like a mid-tier level UFC press conference. It's better than the majority of them, but I'm not a big fan of the press conferences to begin with, but we did have a few notable moments throughout this press conference. First off, there were some rumors that the bout order was getting changed around based off a screenshot of Dana White's War Room where they had Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Lemos as the featured fight on the card. Based on the press conference, the bout order is the bout order that we expected, so thank you to the MMA gods for that. Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Khabibulov was basically a non-factor. Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa, essentially a non-factor. They were kind of part of the press conference. And then you have Merab absolutely bodying Henry Cejudo with a reference that I don't think a lot of people understood. We're going to go through that. Then you have Jeff Neal and Ian Machado Garry. I think they pissed off a lot of MMA fans. There wasn't any trash talk. Now, I personally don't care that there was no trash talk, but I think you're going to have a lot of MMA fans bitching and moaning and crying and saying, oh, Jeff, you missed your opportunity, or Garry, you missed your opportunity here. But they're really just upset because now their tweets aren't going to get as much engagement. Their YouTube videos aren't going to get as many views. Their Instagram videos aren't going to get as many views because there wasn't this artificial bad blood between Jeff Neal and Ian Machado Garry. And there was something said during this stare down that I saw just recently that I think is going to make that crowd even madder. And actually, I recorded this video. I had a camera malfunction midway through, and then I had to re-record it, and when I was setting it up, I saw it on Instagram, and I was like, oh, good, I can mention that in my video. So now I have a reason to re-record it, even though I wouldn't have restarted just for that anyway. And then, finally, the main event, you have Ilia Topuria and Alexander Volkanovski going back and forth, and one of them is going to be a meme on Saturday. And honestly, the number one takeaway from this press conference, you had Ian Machado Garry up there, Henry Cejudo up there, and Ilia Topuria was probably the cringiest fighter at the press conference. But let's start right away. Let's kind of go from bottom up. Anthony Hernandez, Roman Khabibulov asked like one question. Don't even remember the answer. It was a non-event at the press conference. Moving up the card, you have Merab Dvalishvili and Henry Cejudo. They were only asked like 2 or 3 questions. Basically, 50% of the press conference was Ilia Topuria talking shit to Alexander Volkanovski. And when you have 10 fighters up there and it's like a 17-minute press conference, you're not going to get a lot of sound bites when one fighter's talking for 50% of the time. But you have Merab and Henry Cejudo. I want to say this. The MMA media is horrible. This wasn't like the worst press conference for questions from MMA media, but they asked Henry Cejudo, oh, are you looking forward to fighting for the 145-pound belt still against like Volkanovski? And he's like, yeah, that's still the dream. Like, dude, you may never even fight for the 135-pound belt again. You're damn near 40 years old. You would never even have you're small for 35. You would never have a chance to even sniff the 145-pound belt. So what a dumb question to begin with. And then Henry just seems so disconnected. It seems like, honestly, I'm convinced that Henry Cejudo is just showing up for a paycheck. He was also asked, what does a win over Merab do for you? He says, a win over Merab is going to set me up to fight Sean O'Malley or Marlon Chito Vera, whoever wins at 299, which is laughable. Because if Merab loses, Corey Sandhagen's next in line. Not you, Henry Cejudo, who will have won one fight in 4 years. One fight in 4 years. The best moment of the press conference may very well have been Merab Dvalishvili. Say what you will about his fight style, and he gets a lot of flack, and people complain he's boring. He knocked this press conference out of the park. He pulled out a Mexican flag and said, I'm going to make the Mexicans proud. I'm going to make them happy on Saturday. I'm representing the Mexicans. And people might not have understood that, but Henry Cejudo is a Mexican-American. And years ago, he went to a Trump rally with Kobe and Ali, and he basically abandoned his Mexican heritage, essentially. When he first came into the UFC, he was repping an American flag with the Mexico flag on the back, so he had a double-sided flag. And then he abandoned it when he went to a Trump rally, essentially, and then never returned to that. And it pissed a lot of people off. It pissed a lot of, Mexicans and Mexican-Americans off. And Merab used that against Henry Cejudo, and I thought it was brilliant. And there was a back and forth. Henry Cejudo really didn't have anything to say. Henry Cejudo just seems like he doesn't want to be there at all, honestly. He struck me as he didn't want to be there. One of the questions he got asked was, what do you think of the back and forth between Topuria and Volkanovski? That's how little people care about Henry Cejudo. But Merab knocked it out of the park, absolutely embarrassed Henry Cejudo, and got a loud pop from the crowd with the Mexican flag because there's going to be a lot of Mexicans and Mexican Americans in Anaheim for the press conference. He knows the demographic. Very, very smart move of Merab. But outside of that, Merab was asked, basically he's going to get his title shot, and he really, basically said, oh yeah, I'm gonna beat Henry Cejudo on Saturday. And it was really a lot of from everyone on the press conference stage. It was a lot of February 17th. By the way, I will be streaming on Saturday night. If you care to join me, I'll be streaming for the entire card. Figured I'd throw that in there. Okay, next up, you have Jeff Neal and Ian Machado Garry. This is going to piss a lot of people off because they were just nothing but respectful. Nothing but respectful. Jeff Neal was asked it kind of a baited question, but it wasn't bad. It was like, is this personal or something along those lines? And Jeff Neal said, I'm just here to get my hand raised and I want to, eventually fight for a title, basically. Something Jeff Neal said. And then they asked Ian Garry, like, oh, how you feeling, about the fight and blah, blah. The crowd just mercilessly booed Ian Machado Garry. He just kind of said, come on, keep it coming, keep it coming. Then he answered the question and said, I'm going to silence every single one of you guys on Saturday night. And that's all Ian Machado Garry said the entire press conference. Outside of right after that, he said something along the lines of, I'll shake Jeff Neal's hand on Saturday night as long as he's willing to shake mine. And Jeff Neal said, maybe. And then he said, I got you, brother. And then at the stare down afterwards, they shook hands, and something a lot of people probably did not see, because a lot of people with their just, such biased hate towards Ian Machado Garry, and you may dislike him, but I'm just saying a lot of people have this vitriol towards Ian Machado Garry for whatever reason, just because the internet tells you so. But you have Jeff Neal say in the stare down, thank you for making that shirt. It really motivated me. So the people who are going to be so mad about this are going to be like, oh, I'm not going to get any engagement on my tweets. I'm not going to get any clicks on my Instagram videos or my YouTube videos because Garry didn't give me any ammo. And then Jeff Neal was nothing but nice. These people, these incels who are desperately latching on to anything, they were probably like that meme of the guy in the yellow suit like this, hiding behind the tree. Please, Jeff, say something about his wife. They were sitting there wishing and praying that Jeff Neal harassed another man's wife. That's what they were wishing for. They didn't get that ammo. They didn't get the ammo. And guess what? The fans who were crying about the DUI, mugshot shirt from Ian Machado Garry, Jeff Neal's like, thank you for motivating me. And it made the fight a little bit interesting back then before it got canceled. That was back in August. And it hasn't really been brought up again all that much, even though people have still been talking about it. But I meant brought up between Jeff Neal and Ian Machado Garry. It hasn't really been a topic for this fight between those two. So that fight is okay. Both guys are just looking to go out there and get a win. There's no real bad blood. And I cannot wait to see so many people crying and whining about it. And we also discussed this on my live stream. I reacted to the press conference live. I already know a narrative coming out of this because a lot of people have been using Ian Machado Garry's name for clicks. It generates clicks, it generates engagement, it generates everything you could imagine. I'm not saying he's some big pay-per-view draw, don't get my words twisted, but he generates views, he generates clicks. I guarantee people talking about the post-fight or the pre-fight presser, Garry's definitely going to be in the thumbnail, and I already know a narrative coming out of this. And that is going to be, and I've already seen this a little bit in my chat, and we already predicted this on the live stream, nobody cares about Ian Machado Garry. That's going to be the new narrative because they can't really take any of his words at the press conference and say this or say that. They're going to say, oh, nobody cares about him. These are the same people that tweet about him 24/7, making up fan fiction. These are the same people that are making, 30-minute videos talking in circles, making up, fan fiction as well, discussing Ian Machado Garry. These are the same people commenting on every video I make where I say, oh yeah, a lot of this stuff that people are saying about Ian Machado Garry is false, saying, Joe, you don't know what you're talking about. His wife did this. She wrote a book 10 years ago and blah, 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 blah. And she fucks her ex-husband and blah, 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 even though they don't know the man. They never met the man. This is the guy that turned off his Instagram comments. Oh my God, I can't comment on it. I'm a troll and I can't comment on it. I don't go outside and get any pussy and I can't comment on his Instagram. Oh my God, he's such a soy boy. You're crying about a grown man because you can't comment on his pictures on Instagram. If that's you, I'm talking to you right now. If that's you, you're a pussy. You are a pussy. But anyway, the point I'm getting to here is there's really nothing to criticize Ian Machado Garry for with this press conference. And so what it's going to be is nobody cares about Ian Machado Garry. That fight, Jeff Neal, Ian Machado Garry, is the second most anticipated fight on the card. Just right under Alexander Volkanovski versus Jeff Neal. You guys don't understand. Hating someone in the UFC is supporting them. Because guess what? All Ian Machado Garry has to do is win this fight. If he beats Jeff Neal in impressive fashion, his next fight will probably propel him to a title shot. If he beats Jeff Neal and then let's say he goes and beats Colby Covington, if Covington doesn't duck him and he wins that fight, he's probably fighting for a title. And if he does, let's say he beats Jeff Neal and then beats Colby and then he's fighting for a title, that pay-per-view will do very good pay-per-view sales. I'm not saying it's going to be Conor McGregor. I'm not saying it's going to be 1 million pay-per-view buys. But people in the MMA community throw around the term star a little bit too much. Okay, they perverted the term. They perverted the term draw. They call Colby a draw, even though he fought a bigger draw than himself in Jorge Masvidal and sold under 400,000 pay-per-views. But what I'm telling you right now, listen to the boos when he came out. Listen to the boos when he answered the question. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative as long as people care. And people care about Ian Machado Garry. As long as he continues to win, they will want to see him lose. If he loses on Saturday night, they will dance on his grave and then he can try to have a resurgence. If he loses, of course, it's going to hurt his overall name value. Because people are going to, okay, he's undefeated. We've seen him lose. We've seen him get chinned or we've seen him lose a decision, whatever it may be. But if he continues to win, the hype will only continue to grow. And one 17-minute press conference where he talks for 30 to 45 seconds doesn't dictate his drawing power or his potential stardom in the future. He doesn't, and this is another myth, and I need to make another, pretty much a whole video based on this. For some reason, a lot of newer MMA fans who haven't been watching the sport they only been watching basically since the McGregor era, they don't realize you can become a draw without talking. You can become a draw just by fighting. And if you have an ability to continue to win, you don't even have to be exciting. You can become a draw without being exciting as long as you can continue to win. Ian Machado Garry is not only good at fighting and can potentially continue to win, he's also exciting. So he's got both those layers. He doesn't even need to talk, but he's already hated by a large portion of the MMA community. So he's going to parlay that into potential star power if he can continue to win. I need you guys to hear me. If he can continue to win. If he beats Jeff Neal, he's already a bigger name right now before the Jeff Neal fight than 50% of the roster, 60% of the roster. If he beats Jeff Neal and he does it in emphatic fashion on a big card like UFC 298, he's going to be bigger than 75% of the roster, I would say. If he beats Jeff Neal in emphatic fashion at UFC 298. So I don't want to hear, oh, he's not a star, he's not a draw. People are just grasping at straws and they're making up ways to discredit him because Ian Garry comes off as a bit corny and he says, I'm the next Conor McGregor. And it's a bit kind of cringy and corny. I admit that. I 100% understand that. But if he can continue to win, he will be a decent draw in the UFC. And what's crazy is people knock Ian Machado Garry for being a Conor McGregor wannabe. There was nobody who was more of a Conor McGregor wannabe than Ilia Topuria, which we're going to get to in a second. But let's talk about the co-main event. We've already talked enough about Ian Machado Garry, the family man, the alpha male. Let's move on to the co-main event. Robert Whittaker, Paulo Costa. Nothing really all that notable happened. Whittaker said, I'm going to win. And Costa says, if I win, I'm going to get a title shot, which is absolutely delusional. If he wins, he's going to have to win at least 1 or 2 more fights to get a title shot, I would think, depending on how the middleweight division plays out. And then the only notable thing Costa did, well, there's 2 notable things he did. One, he went over and woke Volkanovski up. Volkanovski was kind of sleeping in his chair. He came out in the whole grandpa outfit. And he woke him up. I'm not even sure if Costa knew he was joking around or went over to help him because Costa wasn't even laughing when he did it or when he went back to his chair until Volk said, I was just in character. Then Costa started laughing. So I don't even know if Costa knew. He might have just thought he was doing him a favor, but he probably did know. And then the other thing, which I already see people abusing for clicks on Twitter. Oh, Paulo Costa shoves Ian Machado Garry. When Garry left, he was flipping off the crowd that was booing. And Costa was coming down the stairs. Garry was kind of stopped, and he kind of just put his hands on his shoulder and kind of pushed him forward. It wasn't like a shove. It wasn't anything. It was like, if you want to use the word shove on a scale from 1 to 10, it was like a 1.5 out of 10. If you want to use the term shove, he kind of just gently pushed him forward, and Garry didn't even realize and just felt someone's hands and started walking forward. That was it. But people are going to make something out of nothing, so I figured I'd discuss it in this video. Now, as far as the main event, Alexander Volkanovski, Ilia Topuria. Someone is going to be a total meme after Saturday because you have Volkanovski coming out in the grandpa outfit, sleeping in his chair, and you have Topuria so confident to the point it's almost cringy. And he talked the majority of the press conference, wouldn't even let Volk really talk, was talking over him. And it honestly started off by Topuria telling the crowd to shut the fuck up. She's like, shut up. And the crowd was booing him mercilessly. I like to see Volkanovski as a fan favorite. Also, Whitaker got a lot of cheers as well. You had Volkanovski, Whitaker, and Costa getting a lot of cheers. And then you basically had Cejudo, really nobody cared. Merab got a little bit of cheers, especially a lot of cheers when he brought out the Mexican flag. And then you had Garry getting booed. You had Neil kind of getting cheered just because he was against Garry. And then I think that was pretty much it. I mean, but Volkanovski was clearly the fan favorite there, where Topuria was getting booed heavily. Told him to shut up. Volk was talking about, I'm going to teach him a lesson. And then basically Topuria said, oh, you came dressed for retirement. And that was kind of what Topuria was saying. And Topuria was basically saying, I'm going to take your head off. I'm going to KO you in the first round. Was just going after him. And, Volkanovski came back with a comeback saying, I'm going to spank him. He didn't say, I'm going to spank you like I spanked my 2-year-old son. Like I'm accustomed to. He didn't say that. He said, I'm going to spank him on Saturday. So Volkanovski said that. And then basically, actually in the beginning, when Volk was asked the question, Topuria interrupted him. And then basically told him to do something about it. He was telling the crowd to do something as well, but he told Volk to do something, stand up and do something. Volk stood up. It was kind of you could just tell they're trying to sell the fight. You could just clearly tell Topuria has got somebody in his ear saying, you can be a superstar. You're young. You got the skill set. You're in the biggest fight of your life. Try to become the next Conor McGregor. There's already talk of Topuria is going to headline an event in Spain. You could just tell Topuria had someone in his ear, tell him to act like this. So that started off early, but then basically throughout there was some back and forth. Topuria saying, I'm going to KO him in round 1. And then at the end of the presser, right at the tail end, they asked about, and this is, there's a bunch in between that I'm kind of skipping over. It was like Volk telling him he's going to make it look easy. It's Topuria saying he's going to make it look easy. And really, and then I forgot. The one line Volk did break out, which was perfect, and this was midway through the presser. He called Topuria a McGregor wannabe, which so true, so true. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes that. I don't like it when Topuria does it. I don't like when Machado Garry does it either. Called him a McGregor wannabe, and at the tail end of the press conference, they're discussing Topuria touching the belt before he's won the belt. And how basically he shouldn't have done that. And you have Volkanovski, in between his bouts of pretending he's sleeping and whatnot, said, look, you shouldn't get that for free. You shouldn't have that given to you. You should have to earn it. And Topuria, in the midst of all this, and by the way, Topuria interrupted the translator multiple times, so half of the shit we don't even know what actually happened. Topuria jumps up and grabs the belt Conor McGregor style. And he holds on to it for a minute. He kind of holds it up in the air, and then Volk kind of gets in his face, and eventually Topuria just kind of hands it over. John Anik said, I don't want nothing to do with this. By the way, John Anik got asked the stupidest question of the night. John Anik, you've had some recent criticisms of the MMA fans. How does it feel to now be standing in front of them? And Anik was like, oh, this is a great crowd. Somebody smacked that guy. Somebody put him in a Boston Crab. What a joke that guy was. Stupid question. But anyway, Topuria grabs the belt. He gives it back. And Volkanovski says this, take advantage of it now because you'll never see it again. And then he kind of retracts on it a little bit. Basically, he says, until then, get your hands off my belt. After he says that, maybe one day you'll be able to build back and win a title. But for right now, I'm going to whoop you on Saturday. Something along those lines. So you have Topuria in this press conference being cringier than Cejudo, cringier than Ian Machado Garry. Did not think that was possible. Acting like a Conor McGregor wannabe. And whoever loses is going to be an absolute meme on Saturday, because if Volk gets KO'd, you know how many memes there are going to be of him dressed in that old man outfit? There's going to be a lot. And if Topuria loses, everyone is going to be bringing up all this confidence. But let me just tell you this right now. Even if Topuria loses, it will be forgotten about eventually. It will be forgotten. He can build himself back. Topuria is using this build-up to parlay himself into a superstar. If he believes acting like this, if he goes out there and delivers on what he's promising, he will be propelled into superstardom. That is what he is banking on. And the way I'll describe it is, and if anybody watches football, they'll understand this. In a big game, when a coach decides to go for it on 4th down, okay, let's say they're in field goal range. At the Super Bowl, they were in field goal range. It was 4th and 3. Instead of kicking the field goal and getting 3 points, they decided to go for it. In that instance, at the Super Bowl, they got a touchdown. So the coach is a genius. He's the smartest guy in the room. What a genius for doing that. If he didn't get it, and then they end up losing by, let's say, 3 points, they get ridiculed for the rest of their lives. The rest of their lives eventually kind of fades away. Time heals all wounds. But it's never forgotten about, that dumb coaching decision. It's a very similar analogy to what's going on with Topuria. If Topuria wins, his comments, everyone will be like, man, Topuria really knew, he was confident in himself. He went out there and did it. And there's going to be so many, like, kind of, you know, what's the edits, I guess. We're going to see Topuria talking trash and then boom, the highlight reel of him KOing Volkanovski. But if he loses, everyone's going to be clowning him for a while until eventually he can build back, which who knows, he may never build back. It depends, you know, every fighter is different. But that's essentially what Topuria is trying to do here. He's trying to build himself into a megastar, and that's what he's doing by stealing the belt, by being super confident. And there's never been a better time right now against Volkanovski because Volkanovski's 35 years old. He's coming off a brutal KO loss against Islam Makhachev. It's now or never. We don't know where Volkanovski's confidence is at. I think it's at an all-time high. I think he's more motivated than ever. I did a full breakdown and prediction on this very fight, which I will link in the description, as well as a full card prediction video, which I'll also link in the description. But whoever wins, they're going to look, all the trash talk is going to age mighty well. But whoever loses is going to turn into an absolute meme because Volkanovski dressing in, you know, apparel of a senior citizen, which he was also asked, are you going to ask for a senior citizen bonus on Saturday? I mean, get these guys out of here. The media is horrible at asking questions, by the way. But basically, whoever loses is going to be a meme for a long time. And Volkanovski, I don't know, you know, I guess there would be a rematch if Volkanovski loses, but if Volkanovski loses where he's at in his career, it's going to be really hard for him to build back to that title shot. He's probably going to get an immediate rematch, but I'm saying, you know, if he loses that, it's going to be, his career at featherweight's going to kind of be over. Also, Volkanovski was asked if it was done at lightweight. He says he has plans to go back up to lightweight. I don't know if he can do that. I think one of the biggest travesties of Volkanovski's career is the fact that he took a lightweight title shot. His second fight at lightweight for the title on short notice. I thought that was an absolute travesty. But one thing I do want to mention, the media is horrible. I don't want to hear anyone who complains about Ariel Helwani. I don't want to hear you talk about how bad these media members are at the press conference because every single one of you guys who hate Ariel Helwani rag on him because, oh, he stirs stuff up. No, he asks questions that the normal fans want to hear. And I'm not Ariel Helwani's biggest fan by any means, but they were better when he was at the press conference. By the way, no Dana White. This is supposed to be the biggest fight card of the year. He's probably at the casino with the Nelk boys drinking out of Power Slap blue Solo cups. So, I mean, this is crazy. Dana's checked out, by the way. I know I'm going in a million different directions here. Dana's checked out. Press conference was okay. Main event is going to get memed. Ian Machado Garry's superstar power is on the line against Jeff Neal, and that is the second most anticipated fight on the card. Marab bodied Henry Cejudo, and Anthony Hernandez and Roman Khabibulov were a non-factor. So, let me know what you guys thought of the press conference down in the comments. Again, this was my second record, so sorry it took me forever to get this out. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts, like the video, all that good stuff. Join me Saturday night live for the fights. I'll talk to you guys later.